Welcome back to Orange County's Real Estate Hot 30. I'm Lina Fayyad, and next to me is the wonderful
I'm Holly McDonald. Good morning.
Malcolm. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So, welcome back, guys. We wanted to talk a little bit more about, in detail, actually, about virtual showings. And by the way, Holly is going live right after this podcast through a full virtual walkthrough. So, stay tuned, guys. With that said, I've had buyers feel as though virtual showings are becoming a little bit more robotic. And I wanted to, they can't really get a sense of the nature of the home. If they're airport noise, airplane noises, cabinets, are they soft close? Are they not? Are they little things that you really can't see via video? Right. So what can we really tell our buyers and sellers, especially because it is here to stay? It's kind of like the new iPhone is out. It's not going anywhere, and we really got to adjust to this. So what can we tell our viewers, Holly?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. You're right. I think these are absolutely here to stay. And for buyers, you really need to know how to take the most advantage of this, because right now we're supposed to be staying at home. And yes, in some cases there are showings, but this is really, your first showing has always been online anyway, for the most part. Anytime a new listing hits the market and you see it pop up in your alert or on Redfin or Zillow, that's when you go to take a look and decide, is it worth my time to go see this in person? Well, now, since we're not really going out as much in person, you have the opportunity to go and see it 3D. You really have a chance to explore the floor plan. I can talk about this from a personal standpoint as far as looking at properties. Obviously you want in person is best, right? But since we're trying to make do and do what's safe right now, having the 3D capability and being able to really go through and see the entire home and analyze the layout is so much more personable than just looking at a floor plan.
Absolutely. And I still remind buyers, don't really just give up from the virtual showing. Ask an agent, hey, they might do a live FaceTime. We'll get to the different key points of how people are doing virtual showings these days, but it is here to stay. And they can request a second in-home showing. And that's where we see our sellers kind of holding off just still because of the whole coronavirus. Is they're still weird having people come in even after they've seen the virtual showing when no one was home. So it is here to stay, guys. And all right. So don't worry. And we said, like you said, the Zillow and Redfin websites, they do have the option to, for a virtual showing. Do you want to show us how you're kind of doing that?
Yeah. So let me show you this is one of the technologies that a lot of agents are using right now. It's called a Matterport. And when you are looking at a property, you'll see these little circles. And as you toggle to a circle, you can basically take a look around the entire place to get a really good feel for the space.
Just a 360 view. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and what's nice too is it's almost as if you're walking through the house. It can be a little finicky, but for the most part, look, here I am literally walking into the kitchen. I can get a good feel for, is this a good size kitchen for me? How many cabinets does it have? Does it have a lot of drawers? Does it have, does it have a pantry? These things are really important. And when you're in a house, you start to think about that more. And so since we're less and less in houses, at least you can really take your time, figure out the spatial setup. Some people really like the idea of a kitchen having a certain layout so that it's easy for them to cook or easy for them to store, their personal items. And if it doesn't work for you, then why would you waste your time in reality going to see a house in person? Obviously you can remodel and all that, but I know a lot of buyers right now are not really keen on remodeling. They would prefer a house that they can move into, be happy with for a while. So if you can really figure out, this cabinet is where I'm going to put, my soup cans and my pancake mix and whatever. And
what about scratches or the type of ceiling? If it's a popcorn ceiling, can we zoom into those, for example? Or I think, for example, I see the fridge, which, might not come with that home, for example, but it has a little ding that's visible. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
That's true. You know what you're getting. And yes, that fridge is included. And yes, it has a ding. And
yeah, just, little things that, my buyers think that, hey, you might not see a ding or two, but you actually can.
Yeah, so like here, I mean, the ceiling has a texture, but it's certainly not popcorn. It's good to see that stuff though, because a lot of times you're right. Like I'll have clients that have asked me to show them a property, but they've told me they are dead set against popcorn for, one reason or another. They don't have the means to clean it up and they're worried about it. Or they just think it's an eyesore. And you really have, Photoshop does wonders, and let's not lie, people. These photos can be Photoshopped. So, these are a little bit more of a real take on the property. Again, there are going to be things that you can't see in these. Maybe you won't see a stain on the carpet that you would in person, or maybe you won't hear the airplane. This one doesn't have airplane noise, but if it did, you're not going to hear that from looking at this. But what Lina was getting to before, and I'll close this right now. We've seen enough.
And I think, buyers could still put an offer just from looking virtually and just keep it as, contingent to a formal inspection.
Of course.
It's really not that hard. So I really want to kind of show how positive it is. You're not driving, you're staying at home, you're kind of getting the initial kind of look, but hey, it's not the one and only. You're still going to be able to see the home down the road, and you can always put an offer contingent on inspection. Next, so I wanted to talk about some key points for sellers to kind of be ready, and buyers I'm seeing, after the virtual showing's done, they're like, oh, I forgot to ask a question, or, I don't feel like they're prepared to know what they're looking for virtually. What do you have to say about that? What key points?
Well, I think what it comes down to is, what a lot of buyers maybe don't do initially, is as they get further into their search, they start to figure out, what are my deal breakers? So what you want to do is you want to make a list of what key points are so important to you. So for some people, it may be, here in Costa Mesa, some people are dead set against, they don't want to be near the plane noise, and that's a real thing. So if you can identify that up front, honestly, your agent will probably know, if they know that area, whether or not a home is in the flight path. So then, you don't even have to go as far as to go through the virtual tour. But, say you get to the virtual tour, you need to have a checklist of what your deal breakers and what your must-haves are. So that way, if you're either doing the tour or you have an agent going there and FaceTiming with you, which, that's so great. They can just literally go through the home, but then obviously they're, we're maintaining social distancing and keeping everybody safe. But you can ask them like, hey, point A, does this home have plane noise? Point B, does it have 2 full bathrooms? Are there 2 bathtubs? So, like certain things
or 2 things, or these little details. You're right.
Yeah. And I know that obviously, yes, you could look at photos and try to get some of that information. But when you have somebody that's there in the property and their whole mission is really to give you the information you're looking for as if you were there, you need to take advantage of that. Because right now people are trying to stay in as much as possible. But if it's the right house, you don't want to miss out either because you're not going out.
So buyers really just need to pay attention and kind of be pre-prepared as to what it is they're looking for. Before, buyers would go out and be like, oh, well, I like this and that house, but it wasn't a deal breaker. So they kind of need to narrow down or sift and sort through what it is they're looking for, which is kind of good because it eliminates the homes they don't want.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that obviously you're going to pick up on when you're in the house, yourself. And so you have to not worry about being, let's say, offensive. For certain people, they're not going to like if a house has a smoke odor to it. You can ask these questions, and that could be a deal breaker very well, so those are certain things you want to ask about. You may be somebody that really thrives on natural light who doesn't like some vitamin D. And so if you're, looking at a photo, obviously 99% of photos out there are going to be tuned in to look as bright as possible, but a room could really be a cave, so you need to ask, hey, like, how does it feel like? And feeling is subjective, of course, but if you have very specific concerns, then your agent or whoever is doing that tour for you, their duty is to give you those answers as objectively as possible, because this is obviously a big purchase.
No, you're absolutely right. And just so we know, so there's different ways of doing virtual. There's actually the virtual, the little circles you just showed us where you go through the pictures, and then there's where you can actually request a virtual showing with an agent present at the property. Am I correct?
Yes. Zillow and Redfin They're putting that on their searches now. So if you like a property, whereas before you would click through and then an agent would call you back to schedule a showing, now they're scheduling virtual showings. So you just tell them what time you're available and the agent will request to do that for you.
Amazing. So it's sort of like FaceTime. So you are, is the agent and the client in communication during this showing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's like FaceTime. I mean, and even in some extreme instances, if a seller is hesitant to have people in, which is understandable right now, the homeowner could even offer to do it. Now, of course, you may not ask as many probing questions in that case, but at least you're getting, that 3D experience and really seeing everything.
Yeah, and I'm really seeing sellers that are really being cooperative during this time. They understand that, they want to sell their home and buyers can't come in. So I guess we can tell our sellers, just keep your home nice and tidy and presentable during this time.
Yeah, I mean, Lina, what would you tell a seller if they were, to have an agent come in as if they were going to do a FaceTime tour with a buyer? How would you advise?
Absolutely. The sellers I showed in Costa Mesa, I asked if they're, when's the next time you're going grocery shopping? And they told me they'll be out of the house for an hour, and they left actually some gloves there, which is, I brought my own, but I just went in there. It was vacant. It was nice and put together. I think you could tell, they had kids, which is understandable, but they really made it very presentable, and popped my FaceTime on, got my buyers in there, and just showing them around. It was very easily done. And I didn't think it was going to be that easy. So I kind of like it that way. It's quick. It's literally 5 minutes, then sitting at the property and maybe waiting for your clients to arrive during a traffic hour. And that's all gone, which is great to me. So I feel like our job's cut in half as far as time with this virtual coming around. So I tell my sellers, keep your houses ready to go.
I think it's ultimately going to make a decision maker making quite a bit easier for buyers, because they're going to be able to hone in on what's important to them during this time. And then, hopefully when we come out on the other side of all of this, they're going to be more selective about what properties they go to see in person, because now they know that there's so many other great options out there to preview the homes. And, seeing properties is a commitment. It is a time commitment for sure. And I know it's often hard for people to schedule showings if they work a lot of hours. And so trying to cram in those lunch hours, the weekends after work, it can be challenging for people. But now you have a little bit more options, because you could literally be on your phone doing a quick FaceTime during a quick work break. And then you can decide if it's worth going out and seeing it in person.
We wanted to talk about two specific homes we brought in to kind of show you how their life cycles have been. Holly, I believe one of the homes you picked, they were in Costa Mesa, both homes, correct? And they sold in the early 2000s. So do you want to start with the first one?
Yeah, I mean, this segment is really just to kind of show people that over the course of 20 years or so, how real estate values have gone up. And, they go down. Real estate is a cycle. It's always been a cycle. Anybody you talk to will say what goes up, goes down.
Must come down.
Goes back around. So, and here in Orange County, I think it's very important for people to realize that what the national headlines say do not reflect the local market necessarily. So it's really very important to be in tune with what the local market does. So here's just an example of one home that I traced over the last 20 years, almost 20 years. It initially sold in 2000 for $173,000. So
the good days.
Yeah, right. It was a townhome, but I mean, look, could you get anything for 173 these days? By 2003, they did make some improvements, but it had nearly doubled in value. So 2 years later, it was up to 325. So 173 to 325. That is a huge amount of money. So, following that, you would be like, oh my goodness, in 10 more years, what is it going to be, like $1 million? But that wasn't the case. After 2003, the market went up a little bit more, and then, it came down. We had the Great Recession. So by 2014, 10 years later, it had gone up, but it hadn't gone up as dramatically. It still went up about $100,000 though. So 2000,
starting from 173 and ending to almost, that long. It's like almost $500,000.
Yeah, so it had gone from 173 to 420, and that was by 2014. And of course, since 2014, we've just been trucking up, the little roller coaster that we're on. So today it's worth about 540, which is about 3 times what it was worth in 2000, which is a really, or two and a, yeah, I guess about
yeah, almost.
So I mean, that's a huge gain for anybody over 20 years
Yes.
to realize that much appreciation.
Wow, that's definitely tripled. That's so good.
Now, obviously, if you had gone to sell, if you bought it in 2003 for 325, and then you went to sell it in 2009, 2010, when we were in the recession, would you have made money? At that point, it may not have. Prices did dip, but
yeah, we did.
You're able to wait it out, which ideally, real estate is a long-term investment. So if you're able to wait it out, look how much they gained, another couple $100,000 worth of buying power, or, whatever they need it for retirement, whatnot. Yeah, you made a lot. So that's like insanely good.
That's so good. That's so great. I like that townhome you picked. And is the other one a townhome, the second home as well?
No, the second one's a standard single family, just for a different type of comparison. But this one's over a 15-year curve. So it initially sold in 2005 for $634,000. And of course, 2005, 2006, that was like the peak of the previous market. So it did go through a downturn. I don't have any good values for what it was in the downturn. I'm going to estimate probably around 500. So it did lose value for a short period. But over the course of 15 years, they sold again last year for $740,000. So it still came out over $100,000 ahead.
Yes.
Because those people were able to wait for the market to come back around.
And I mean, people who are, even right now during this coronavirus, I had a buyer yesterday I ran into actually at the store, and he's like, I'm ready to buy, I just need to get started with the loan. And everyone's telling him not to buy. His dad, his mom, everyone. So he asked me what I thought about it. And I told him, listen, if you're buying a home now, you really got to think at least 7 to 10 years ahead. Even let's say you don't want to keep it for 30, but you do have to think 7 to 10, like you said, prices will dip and will go up. It's just a normal cycle for real estate. So I really encouraged him, and he was really encouraged to buy because he knows he doesn't want to miss the good inventory that is coming up now,
I think that's really sound advice. I mean, here's the thing. If you do buy and wait 7 to 10 years, it's almost like a sure thing that your value is going to go up. Your money's been working for you. The interest rates are so low right now that it almost doesn't make sense not to buy. But if you're trying to wait for that ultimate low, which unfortunately we will never know what the low is until the low is behind us. But
exactly. That's what I was telling him. He's like, well, what if after this corona, all these buyers come out and interest rates go up? I was like, then you lose the boat. And you really want to lock in that rate. That's what's really important, because when you're getting a home or a piece of land, you're thinking long-term. You're not thinking, oh, I want to sell this tomorrow. So keep that in mind. And real estate will keep going up and down every day.
If you're buying something that you plan to live in and cherish, and you've locked in a rate that's really good, it's much better than hoping that your rent won't go up next year. I mean, if you're in a place that you're comfortable with, you should just consider it an option.
So the point is, it's a long-term investment. Am I correct?
Absolutely. It's a long-term investment. And here's the thing, like I was saying before about national headlines, they only tell a part of the story. It doesn't really necessarily translate to here in Orange County. We are very fortunate to live where we live. This is a market where we've got amazing weather. I don't need to tell you guys, we all live here, but I can tell you personally, and Lina can attest for this as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're both not from here. We are transplants. We have been here for a while, but we remember where we came from. And there is 1,000,001 reasons why we both chose to stay in Orange County.
And even amid this, a crisis and the real estate market just kind of being, shifting here and there, I'm staying. I will purchase a home, and, my buyers are still loving Orange County. Like you said, we're in our own nest. We're very fortunate to be in Southern California, and, talk to your realtors, ask them what this pertains to your, little neighborhood and how this affects you. So Any last piece of advice for our buyers and sellers out there?
My biggest advice would be just right now, you can still buy and sell real estate. We're putting so many precautions in place to protect everybody. I think that it's a really wise time to just take advantage of learning the new technologies so that you can use them moving forward. I think it's going to help a lot of sellers and buyers and realtors as well, just to be able to use this stuff, and it's only going to get better.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all we have for today. We are going live right after this on, Holly, do you want to mention your Facebook page?
Yes, so my Facebook page is OC Lifestyle. I use that one for listings all around Orange County, and I will be live today at 1 o'clock at a South Coast Metro condo, 1 bedroom in Santa Ana, listed for $268. And then following that at 2 p.m., you can tune in to see a condo that I was kind of showcasing earlier when we did that virtual tour. That's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in Rancho Santa Margarita, asking $435,000.
Ooh, amazing. Well, I will definitely be logging in to view that. And if you guys have any questions, comments, please like, subscribe, write them below. We are here to help and assist you during this time. We are working. And thank you for watching Orange County's Real Estate Hot 30. I'm Lina Fayyad.
I'm Holly McDonald.
And see you next.
Bye.
Bye.